Tell me about your fast internet.
My fast internet. All right, so they have been laying down new cables around town, and I go out for my walks during the day because I gotta keep fit. And I see these people putting this conduit down in the ground, and I'm looking at it, and I'm reading the side of the truck, and I'm like Googling the name of the company. It's like, oh, they put down fiber. I'm like, this is good. So they've been putting fiber out into the neighborhoods of my town, and not too long ago, Comcast started offering even faster service. So now I'm doing full on gigabit. It's not fiber to the house. I think it's fiber into the neighborhood, and then the rest of it's coaxial cable, which is, the predominant way we get. I think most people get fast internet in the U.S. So it was a hassle. You know how it is when you call the cable company and to do anything, even if you want to give them more money, there's always some hassle involved because it involved signing up, and then I have to get the cell for the cable, which I cut the cord on the cable service last summer. And it's pretty funny now, though, that when they have this like set of questions they ask you, and they ask you things like, how many devices do you have connected to your network? And I'll say, I don't know, between 25 and 30 maybe. And they're like, oh, and then they stop asking you about the cable TV because they know what kind of person you are. I mean, a lot of those things are like Hue light bulbs and stuff like that. But there's, I've got, especially when my older kids are around, I've got a lot of people with a lot of devices and computers and home kit stuff and, just things all attached to this network. So I wanted, and I've always wanted to be fast for a couple of reasons. I mean, I rationalize it because I figure on a Skype call like this, it's good to have as low latency as possible. And I figure every little bit helps. There's that. I download lots of software. It's amazingly fast now. It is full on gigabit, but I guess, boy, I'm getting way ahead of myself. I did have to have someone come out because they managed to somehow, first of all, in the US too, the cable companies like to rent you a modem, a crappy modem, right? A really, and they do it for like $7, $8, $9 a month. So this is probably the kind of modem you could walk into a store and buy for $50. So after, 6 months, you've paid for it, and then you keep paying for it for years, and it makes no sense. So I got myself a good, I got DOCSIS 3 cable modem or maybe it's 3.1. Don't at me. I got it on Amazon, and they were unable to get it on the account. They ended up like leaving the old modem on the account, which screwed up the service. A guy came out. Guy's like, well, we'll have to test this. And he was, we were talking about it, and we're going through troubleshooting, and I'd already done a bunch of stuff, and he could kind of tell I semi knew what I was talking about. And he's like, well, we need to connect this to, by the wire to a laptop or something. So I brought over a laptop, and he's like, oh, well, you're not getting it because the Mac doesn't support gigabit Ethernet. I'm like, oh God. It's like, okay, all right. And at some point, though, then it comes out that he's like, what do you do? I was like, well, I review like tech stuff and things like that. He's like, and then there's like this long pause. He's like, you're not reviewing Comcast, are you?
Excellent.
I know. And I was like, good idea. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you tell them that you are, and then you'll get a like slightly better service, maybe.
Yeah. Well, long story short, I guess he didn't help a lot, but he did get it. He did get the service up and running, but it wasn't running as fast as it was supposed to, and I ended up figuring out that it was a bad gigabit Ethernet converter. The Apple USB-C to Ethernet adapter that I had from Dongle Town, they're made by Belkin. For whatever reason, it just didn't have the throughput anymore. I don't know if it burned out or what, because those things get really hot. So I went over to a store and bought this little Anchor thing, which has got Ethernet plus a few USB-As on it, and tried that. Worked like a charm. So everything's cool now, and I've got an even more complex Wi-Fi setup than I had before. Including, I've been lately doing these AirPlay 2 speaker sets that I've been setting up in my house.
Oh my God!
I wrote about one of them on Mac Stories. Well, so once they updated the airport expresses, right? I just happened to have two of those lying around, as you do. I took one of them. I took one of them, hooked it up to this thing that was called a Griffin. Oh God, I think it's called the Griffin 20 or something like that. It was a little. Griffin made this thing for about 6 months, where the very first generation of the airport looked more like a MacBook power adapter, right? It was like the rectangular thing, and it plugged into the wall. And
Sure.
then the newer ones look like Apple TVs. But this thing, the Griffin 20, was designed to fit that older first generation Airport Express. And they finally got this thing out the door, shipped. It was available for sale. And 6 months later, Apple changed the whole form factor of the Airport Express. So it was a very short-lived product, but it's just like this little tiny amp. You hook up speakers to it. I have some to my outdoors backyard hooked up to it. And I just put this new Airport Express on it. It doesn't fit neatly and tidily like it was designed to, because it's not a first generation one, but it still works, still has the inputs. And now I have AirPlay 2 to the outside. And then I was like, I found another Airport Express. And I have some old speakers in the basement. So I got myself a little tiny amp that you can get at Amazon for like $25 and hooked that up like 2 days ago. So now I basically have surround sound as I sit down here working.
You're just finding these things around your house. Or there's another Airport Express. It just.
I really think, Rob, that what I'm explaining here is an elaborate system of procrastination. Because September is extremely busy at Mac Stories, and I've had a hard time getting myself started on a few big projects. So instead, I just like plug in wires and do all this other stuff. Because, everything becomes an article at some point.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So
that seems fun.
That's my high-speed internet story. I do have high-speed internet now. I do have 2 sets of AirPlay 2 speakers, and they work quite well. If anybody has one of those old Airport Expresses lying around, you can add some speakers and a cheap amp to it, and you're good to go.
Wow. Well, there you go.
We need to talk about Mastodon again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Did you have any particular questions for me, or
are you still tooting? I tooted it. I felt guilty that I hadn't tried it out enough after the last episode, and so I've gone on Mastodon a few times and poked around here and there.
Yeah. I'm still there. Still not using Twitter. I've been on maybe twice, 2 or 3 times in the last week or so.
Okay.
Just to see if I've missed anything.
Not much.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said last week, obviously there's certain people, you for example, you are still tweeting as opposed to being on Mastodon or whatever.
Right.
So there's a few people that I'm not seeing stuff, so I will pop in and just see if I've missed anything interesting or whatever. I've added a few more feeds to my automatic RSS bot, just so I'm kind of getting news and things like that, the stuff that I want. But yeah, other than that, I'm still using it. I'm still pretty happy with it. I haven't heard any terrible political news, or I haven't got angry by stuff I've seen. So yeah, I'm doing pretty great about it.
Well, that's good. I mean, I have heard, of course, there's like the backlash story of like, I think it was Will Wheaton was kind of mobbed off of Mastodon. I can't say that I read all the details, but that was out there. Whatever. I mean, I've gone on a few times. It's fine. I've also stayed on Twitter, but I've been using it less. I think to some degree, what Twitter is doing with their API has had the intended effect, because I have found myself in the official app once in a while, mostly for notification type stuff. And I've started to notice, at least with Tweetbot, and I just don't know if this is a Tweetbot thing or an API thing, but I've noticed missing tweets. And it's very hard to notice a missing tweet, to actually see a hole in your timeline. But you do notice them from time to time. Like I saw, Kyle's the Gray respond to something that Mike had said, and I looked at the details, and I was like, oh. I don't remember seeing that. And I actually scrolled back, and I was like, oh, yeah, I never saw Mike's tweet about that, And then, and that happens too a lot with, I notice it with Federico too, because he oftentimes retweets or tweets about articles that all of the whole team, writes on the site. And I was like, oh, I never saw him tweet about that book review I did. And lo and behold, the only reason I knew that he did was because later in the day, he's like, oh yeah, that the author of that book, he retweeted my tweet about your article. I was like, oh, okay. I had no idea that you had even done that, because it wasn't in my timeline to begin with, and I just thought he hadn't done it. So if that is, and I kind of feel like if I notice those because of other other context, that there's got to be like 5 times that probably happening in real life of people who, where I just, they tweet something, but maybe nobody said anything, nobody that we're mutual followers with said anything back to them about it, and then I just never see it. And I don't really care that I see every single tweet. I don't feel like I need to see every single one, but I also don't want to feel like things are just dropping off the timeline randomly for no particular reason.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good look. And maybe it's Tweetbot. It could be a side effect of them losing the streaming API.
Right.
Because previously they would have been receiving every tweet as it came in, whereas now they're loading them all. So maybe there's something wrong with the logic of loading the tweets. It could be anything. But yeah, the apps, the API, all of this kind of stuff, like that's like the other side of like why I'm enjoying Mastodon so much, because the APIs are there. They're not being locked down. Twitter now, I can't create any new apps in Twitter and get API keys because they're locking that down now. You have to like justify it to them, and they'll review it and approve it and all that kind of stuff. Because I went in there the other day to get a key to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to use a key from one of my other things that I'd built, one of my other integrations, because they won't let me create a new one.
Really?
Yeah. I certainly couldn't see the button for it.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Which is kind of annoying. And as I say, like, maybe I just want to build some silly stuff or just mess around with the API or do whatever. And, with Mastodon, I can do that.
Yeah, that's too bad. Another thing I noticed I found out today, I don't know if you're familiar with Andrew Hart's app called Twim. It was like instant messaging built on top of Twitter DMs, basically.
Yeah, I remember that app.
It's no longer there. It's on the store still, but it's not as useful. And I think he may take it down just because, from what I've heard, because there's delays. It's not really, doesn't really work as instant messaging if it's not instant, right? You can't calling it Twim when you've got like a 4 to 5 minute delay isn't really accurate anymore. And there are other limitations that affect it. So there's no group messaging in third-party apps. So yeah, it's kind of a shame. It's definitely putting a crimp in the style of innovation on Twitter. I don't know why anyone would build anything at this point, and I'm not even sure that the ones who already are going to stick with it all that much longer.
No, I've seen on Mastodon, some of the Twitterific people and the Tweetbot guys have, clearly. I think it would be crazy to assume that they weren't at least investigating building a Mastodon app.
Yeah. Tweetbot did an app.net client at one point. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
I forget what it was called.
It was called NetBot.
Oh, that's right.
And the icon was like a black rather than a blue.
Right.
It makes sense for them to investigate it because, of course, they've got a lot of the quote-unquote infrastructure. We both know it's not quite so easy to just, you can't click your fingers and make it work, but, right. I think they're certainly giving it some serious thought. And, I'm beta testing a couple of apps. The app situation is not great on Mastodon right now. There's some good things in all of the apps, but none of them really do exactly what I want. But I'll keep an eye on it. I'm sure something will happen soon.
Yeah, I hope so. I've not been super impressed with the crop of Mastodon apps that are out there so far. But given the interest, I assume somebody will get on top of that. And it just strikes me as there's money to be made there. Unless because it's, I don't know. Maybe people don't feel like they can charge, but I would think that you could charge for an app on that ran as a Mastodon client.
The first person that gets a Mac app out is going to make a lot of money in the first few days.
Is there not one at all? Because I went looking and I couldn't find any, and I really don't like using it through the web. So
there's two. There's one which is essentially a web wrapper, but it adds a bunch of features, so like notifications and keyboard shortcuts, that kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
But you can kind of achieve that with Fluid yourself, which is what I'm using right now on the Mac.
Right.
And
don't get me started about Electron again, Rob.
I'm not. We're not talking about Electron. Just Fluid.
Okay.
Just a web wrapper.
I heard web wrapper, and I just started getting itchy.
And then there's a second app which looks quite nice, but when you click on like a toot to see the detail, it slides the window, and the window gets bigger and smaller. So that doesn't really work, presumably for you or for me, because I imagine you keep Tweetbot or whatever else in a single column in a certain place.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, right now those are the only two options. So I am just using the website in a Fluid wrapper with a bunch of CSS customizations that I've made.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I use Fluid for Toggle, and it works pretty well for that, because I just don't like anything that's a service that I'm going back to periodically throughout the day. I really just don't like having it in a tab. It just gets too easily lost.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, for all, I agree with you. A native app is always going to be kind of a better experience. Like Mastodon's web app is very, very well built for a web app.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not ideal for a native experience, on a Mac or even on iOS, but the web app is very, very good, and it does cover most of my use cases.
I just wish it was more customizable, because I don't like. There's just a lot of columns going on there that I just don't care about.
Yeah, I definitely like to see, because you can add columns, but you can't get rid of some of the columns.
Yeah, that was my. I mean, look, I've got very limited experience with it, but my limited experience was that I couldn't get rid of all of these things that I'd want to get rid of. I mean, maybe what they're telling me is I shouldn't get rid of them because I should care about the federated timeline, because then I feel like I'm part of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, the federated timeline. Oh, you still have an account on? Is it Mastodon.social?
Yeah. And so I go on. It's like
Oh.
half the time it's in Japanese and Korean and nothing else.
Yeah, the federated timeline over there, because there's so many users, it gets a bit unmanageable.
Yeah, because it's like the old Twitter fire hose. It's just everybody just going.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
I suppose that works a lot better if you've got your own little private thing with a dozen people.
Yeah, mine's okay. I don't think I've connected outside of a very few specific instances, and my federated timeline mostly looks like my personal timeline.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah. All right. So that makes sense. So your personal timeline is all the people you follow, and your federated timeline is all the people you follow, plus any links you've created to other instances of Mastodon, right?
Yeah, so that can be like people I follow. It could be like people that they follow, maybe, or people they've they've boosted their tweet or tweets. I'm just gonna say retweet.
Please do, because toot is terrible.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it's kind of if they've interacted with other people, and then like my instance will start pulling in, statuses from those people. So my federated timeline will eventually build up.
Yeah.
And there was a new release of Mastodon this week, and it's got a new feature called like a relay server. So you can subscribe to the relay server to like populate your federated timeline with more statuses if you want.
Oh, okay.
So like there might be an instance where everyone on there is talking about something I'm interested in. Well, I can, in theory, connect to the relay with that instance, and that will like feed their statuses into my instance, so that like my federated timeline becomes a bit more populated. I haven't really looked at that too much yet, but it's that only came out a few days ago.
How's that different than just connecting to another instance?
So the way you don't directly connect to another instance, so it's only if you follow like a specific person.
So this is like, okay, so this is more like following the instance than following the people.
Right, exactly. They say it's kind of designed for people who've just started an instance where there won't be any statuses there.
Yeah, trying to fill the empty void.
Right, exactly. But it's, I don't know. It's interesting right now, but it's still pretty early. There was some pretty good stuff in the update, like custom CSS.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
so I can actually customize it in my admin settings.
Oh, nice.
Because I run the instance. So like a lot of the tweaks that I've done, I've got I put a little website together with all the tweaks I've been making just to make the web app slightly better. I can actually put those directly into my instance now.
And your instance can be private if you want it to be, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm pretty sure you can do that.
In which case, someone might be able to follow you and see what you're doing, but they wouldn't see the rest of the stuff there.
I don't know.
It gets confusing fast. You know what I really don't like is that I picked my username and I accidentally auto-capitalized the J, so it really bothers me to look at my username, which is just...
and you can't change it, can you?
I don't think so. And then it just happened. I suppose, do you think that it's a namespace thing? Do you think I can grab the other one?
I have no idea. I honestly don't know.
Should I even care?
Probably not.
Okay, all right. I'll
maybe worry about it if you decide to actually start using it.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, that's enough about Mastodon. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a shame though. I don't see Joe Steele anymore, or you, or Dan, or I forget who else. I mean, there's a handful of people who are just like gone from Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Frank's gone.
Yeah, Frank's gone. Which is
he's
another...
called Simon now. He has a real name now.
He's a real boy now. Yeah, Simon was all grown up, and we can call him by his proper name. He was one of the people who protest Twitter, did the Twitter protest, and quit for like a week or two. But he came back, so I assume that he's peaking too on some level. But Merlin's gone. Merlin's not tweeting. Last I looked. There's a bunch of people who are gone, which is too bad. I mean, it's one reason, like I said, I think my use of Twitter has definitely dropped off. Although I was tweeting in Korean earlier today. I don't know if you noticed.
I did see that because we were talking about Twitter just before we recorded, and I did actually see that.
I'm testing the bounds of Google Translate.
Yeah, well, let's just hope the translate went well. But
I hope so too.
It's interesting what you said, about like you sort of tweeting less and using Twitter slightly less, maybe. Because I've noticed this with a lot of people who, somebody like you who writes for a website, so you have a certain audience who are generally going to be quite opinionated about certain things.
Yep.
And actually, your followers, I think, are in a fairly low numbers compared to some people.
Right.
You start getting into the 30, 40, 50,000 followers sort of amount. And I kind of noticed a lot of those people just aren't really tweeting anymore because it's just too much hassle. Because for everything you tweet, you're going to get a response from it, at least one, potentially hundreds.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like I know, like like for instance, despite parallel tweeting with Federico all day, we hardly ever like interact on Twitter ever anymore. We don't have to. We could. But that's what I mean when I say using Twitter less. I mean, it's become more of a marketing tool for Mac Stories than it is a way for me to chat with my friends, which is too bad. But I mean, it is what it is, I guess. It's kind of a rotten place in a lot of ways.
So anyway, let's move away from all this social networking stuff and something more fun.
I don't want to get all heavy again.
No, definitely not. We are 2 days away from Spider-Man for PS4 coming out.
And I only just ordered it, I think, yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I should have asked you, and I didn't know which version to get. And
well, I assume you only had 2 versions available to you.
Well, there's 3. There's like the regular version, the deluxe version, and then there's like the crazy, figurine, crazy expensive version, which I think that's what you got, right?
That's the one I've got. That's completely sold out.
Yeah,
even if you saw it on a website, you weren't going to be able to get that.
Yeah, no. When I did a search, I saw it come up on Amazon, but I wasn't ever really considering that one anyway. So I didn't. It probably isn't available here. I just didn't bother looking. So I ended up getting. I ended up getting the base version. Because
I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with the base version.
Yeah, well, I was tempted by the DLC and the extra Spidey suits, but the reality is that September is one of my busiest work months, and the chance that I'd get very far into Spider-Man in September are slim to none. So I figured, you know what? I'll just get the base one now. I'll try it out. If I really get into it later when I have more time, I can always get the DLC then.
Yeah, as I say, I've got the super duper collector's edition coming. It should be dispatched tomorrow for delivery Friday. So my weekend is completely wiped out. I'm not doing anything else.
Nice. Yeah, Friday, that would be good. I mean, I hope. This was probably a mistake. I went with the physical copy. Part of it is our drive connected to the PS4 is getting full. Now, there's a lot of junk on there. I think there's a lot of demos and other junk that I could probably get rid of and fit. So that's not really a very good excuse. But sometimes Amazon sells the physical copies for cheaper. And I just went for it because I figured, well, I'm not in a hurry, super big hurry, until I thought just now, it would be good to get it earlier in the day because I usually don't work on Friday afternoons. So Friday afternoon would be a good time to play it. But my UPS guy rarely gets here before like 5 or 6 p.m., which kind of sucks.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I can still play it. It's still not that late. But at the same time, I mean, if I could have it, midday, I'd be playing it midday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm lucky and unlucky. I'm in work that day, but because it's being delivered to work, I can guarantee that it's going to be there before 5 o'clock before I leave.
Ah, yes.
Because it's a business address, so those are the hours they deliver.
Sure.
So, I imagine I'll probably have it by like 2-3 o'clock, but of course, I won't be able to play it because I'm not just going to leave work at random.
Yeah, no, it's probably not, I got to leave. I got to go play Spider-Man. That probably doesn't float very well.
Yeah, the parcel turns up and I just go, I'm really not feeling well. See you later, guys.
Yeah, we'll see. There've been so many good games. Do you see there's going to be another Nintendo Direct tomorrow?
Yeah, I did.
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited. You know why? I think they're going to tell us more about the online service.
Oh, of course. Yeah, isn't that coming out
in September? And they teased it a little bit more on Twitter. Not that you'd know. A few days ago, Nintendo America had basically it was like, oh, now you can play with your friend. You can be Mario and he can be Luigi. That kind of thing.
Sure.
And so they teased that, but there's still so little information about it, other than what the price is and that it's coming in September. The teaser for tomorrow really didn't say much other than 3DS and Switch games. So they didn't say they were going to talk about it, but I think they will.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. As you say, they said it's coming in September. I mean, what on earth does that mean?
Right.
It could be tomorrow. They could go, it's live now. Doesn't seem like they will. But they've got another 3 weeks, I guess, 3-4 weeks.
Right.
But yeah, I imagine we're going to see a little bit more about the online service and, hopefully some new games, I guess, or at least some more information about the ones that are coming.
Well, just last week they did the one with they did a Nindies, right, where they did a lot of the indie games that are coming. There was some really nice stuff in that video stream. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw some of it. I feel like I always watch the ones where they do the Nindies. I'm like, look at these games. These are all really, really nice. And then I will forget them all.
Yeah, it's really
I'll never play any of them.
I know. It's really easy to forget them. It's like they really need to be written down. Or you find one of those articles that does like the roundup afterwards and tuck it away somewhere. But it was really cool because this was the first time I knew about something that was going to be in a Nintendo Direct before it actually happened. Because our friends at Panic Software are the publishers of Untitled Goose Game, which was the very last. You probably didn't even notice they flashed the Panic logo so fast, but the very last game that was talked about was Untitled Goose Game by House, and it's kind of a really funny game where you play as the goose, and it's really kind of elements of stealth and puzzle solving and that sort of thing. And it looks really neat. And we heard about it a few days in advance and had a story up on Mac Stories about it, which was cool. It's coming in 2019. There's no actual release date yet, but it looks like a fun game.
Yeah, I remember when the developers, it must maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago.
Yeah, it was
they
almost
put up like a little video or something on Reddit, I guess maybe on their website or YouTube or something like that.
Yep.
And I remember seeing this game and I'm thinking, I really want to play this. Like, I need this in my life right now.
Yeah, it was last November. It was last November. It was a long time ago.
Wow, yeah, so it was a long while ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will I'm going to rely on you to tell me when that's out next year.
Yeah. Now, like, I have not seen it in action. All I've seen are the same. I saw the pre-alpha footage that went up last November and the trailer that was released in connection with the Nintendo thing. There was a playable version at PAX West this past weekend, and I was looking on Twitter, and Cable Sasser was there, and he was doing this little video, and he was showing the line of people in line to play Untitled Goose Game, and it just stretched on and on and on. And from the few little reports I saw of people who got a chance to play it, it looked like it was a lot of fun.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Spider-Man, though, right? You've got your Spider-Man coming, and are you excited?
Oh, I'm very excited. I've been avoiding the reviews. I've seen the scores from all the different sites,
Yes.
but I'm not going to watch any reviews or read any because
Same.
I mean, I've already spent my money at this point. I've already pre-ordered it. I'm gonna play it. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to get home Friday, eat some food, and then probably not move again until Sunday night.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, at one point the embargo lifted. I guess it was yesterday morning, and my entire timeline was nothing but thumbnails of articles on various, in various publications about games, or about the Spider-Man game in particular. And people seem really excited about it. I heard Game of the Year, said on Twitter a couple of times, but I too have been kind of avoiding the reviews because I just want to play it and enjoy it and see what it's like for myself.
Yeah, definitely. So, right. I think that would probably do us, for this week.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Well, show notes will be up, ruminatepodcast.com/71. So we've gone past 70 now. I think we're doing pretty well, barreling towards 100 eventually.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. I'm excited. I was just looking, and it's amazing. We've been doing it for a long time now. I kind of always feel like I just started podcasting, but I guess we've been doing it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been good. So, show notes will be there. You're on Twitter.
Yes,
I'm not.
I am.
I'm on Mastodon.
Don't at me, bro.
Yeah, well, people can at me. It's really nice over on Mastodon.
Okay.
Everyone's really pleasant to each other.
I'll go over there and shake it up a little bit.
Yeah. Brilliant.
All right. Talk to you later, Bob.